New evidence indicates how and why Harvey Weinstein worked with certain tabloid media outlets in order to smear women and journalists who would come out against him with sexual assault allegations. Now, this is something that Ronan Farrow has really brought light to, and he's done really excellent reporting here. But I wanted to share the story with you and outline exactly who Harvey Weinstein worked with and how he managed to create these campaigns to smear women and journalists who might come out against him. Now, Weinstein had hired private security agencies, including one called Black Cube, run by former Israeli intelligence officers, and another called PS Ops in Los Angeles to keep tabs on actresses and journalists. He also enlisted journalists in his campaign to investigate and discredit not just accusers, but other journalists, specifically other journalists who would have the audacity to do reporting on his predatory behavior. So
I want to say two quick things here before we tell you the rest of the story. One is that you know that you might be doing something shady if you're going with a company called Black Cube. Like these guys have a way of just like saying what they are, like Blackwater. Remember, they're like, who names themselves Blackwater, right? And so these guys are Black Cube. Don't worry, we're gonna do something shady. The other guys are PS Ops, like PsyOps.
Yeah.
Like here, we're over here. If you want to do shady, well, I don't want to say criminal. You don't know. They might be perfectly legal, and they're probably careful about that stuff. But if you'd like to do shady stuff, we named ourselves. It's like naming yourself Shady Incorporated.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, now, by the way, you got to know that Weinstein is not the only person doing this. First of all, Trump has used these same National Enquirers you're about to see. Because National Enquirer is part of this story, but Trump has also used them to smear opponents, including Republican opponents. Remember when the National Enquirer ran the story about how Ted Cruz had 5 mistresses? Like 5 women would sleep with Ted Cruz. There's more chance that the National Enquirer story about aliens landing is correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, and a lot of Hollywood does this. When journalists go to report on any kind of sex scandal or anything else, they will send these guys out to threaten other journalists.
Yep.
So, but now we get to find out because of the Weinstein scandal how it works.
Exactly. So let me give you some context before I get to specific email exchanges that Weinstein is included in. So one of the efforts was to smear Rose McGowan. And apparently it was discovered that Rose McGowan had some sort of relationship with a director named Robert Rodriguez, okay? Robert Rodriguez was married at the time to a woman named Elizabeth Avellan. And Weinstein knew that, and he realized that they had divorced and decided to hire opposition researchers and certain reporters to kind of dig into that issue and figure out if they can get some, bad information or information that showed Rose McGowan in a negative light. And they did manage to do that. So there was a reporter named Andy who reached out to Elizabeth Avellan, again, who was married to Robert Rodriguez. They're now divorced. And there was a rumor that he had some sort of affair or sexual relationship with Rose McGowan. Now, one of Weinstein's foot soldiers was Dylan Howard, the chief content officer of American Media Inc., which publishes tabloids, including the National Enquirer, where Howard also serves as editor-in-chief. So all of a sudden, this reporter named Andy, who is associated with all of this, goes to talk to Avellan and starts, pushing for answers regarding Rose McGowan's character. That information is then relayed back to Howard, and Howard tells Weinstein, I got some dirt. In one of the email exchanges, Howard says the following: I have something amazing, Howard gushed in an email to Weinstein. My guy spoke with Elizabeth Avellan. She is a good talker. He went on to describe unflattering things Avellan had said about McGowan during her conversation with this reporter, Andy. Right? Now, we have screenshots of these exchanges between Weinstein and Howard. Here's an example of it. Weinstein responded to that email by saying, this is the killer, especially if my fingerprints are not on this.
Oops.
And Dylan Howard responded, they are not, and the conversation between you and I is recorded. I don't know how that's a good thing, but
yeah, I think that he's saying like, we have mutual dirt on each other, so we're cool.
Oh, I see, okay.
That's my interpretation of it. But don't worry, your fingerprints won't be on this. as we just now talk about it on a national level.
I know.
Apparently your fingerprints were on it, Harvey. And that's the thing, you get into bed with guys who are doing shady stuff, at some point they're gonna turn the shady stuff against you.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, they never explain who Andy is. Andy's a guy that they, contract out to, who poses as a reporter, and he gets you to confide in him.
Yeah.
And she keeps asking, like Avellan, poor woman, she's like, I don't want to say bad things about my husband. I want this to be off the record. I don't want to talk about this.
But to her credit, she didn't want to say negative things about anyone, including McGowan, even though it was clear in some of her statements that she's not a fan of McGowan because of this alleged relationship that Robert Rodriguez, her ex-husband, had with her. But nonetheless, she's like, look, I have a great relationship with my ex-husband. I have 5 kids with him. I care about my children. I don't want to say any negative things, but this so-called reporter, Andy, was so persistent. He was relentless that he got a little bit of a negative comment from Avellan, and that was the so-called like, oh, this is the killer, you know.
So he apparently works on behalf of Andy does, on behalf of Coleman Rayner, and that's a Los Angeles-based news and photo agency that works on stories for various tabloids. So, but remember, this story was not necessarily going to go to print. They just wanted information that they could use to maybe even threaten her and say, hey, we know that this stuff about you. So these guys pose as journalists when they're actually in an unofficial way looking to blackmail people.
Yeah.
Now, legally that might not be blackmail, but they're trying to get dirt on them so that a powerful person who has done terrible things to them can cover up their crimes. And in the case of Harvey Weinstein, it was crimes. And so this is how they, in a lot of ways ruin journalism, and then they use it to threaten other journalists that are actually doing their jobs.
Right, absolutely. And by the way, so again, going back to the question that you hear over and over again from people who are suspicious of any and all allegations that are made, this is the reason why women don't speak up, right? This is one of the reasons why women don't speak up.
That's a great
There's
point.
just so much retaliation that can be taken against them if they are accusing someone who is in a position of power. You're talking about Harvey Weinstein. He has every resource at his disposal. And now we have evidence of how he would smear people and threaten them so they wouldn't speak up, including journalists.
So some people say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory.
But there's evidence.
Right.
I mean,
no, that's what they would say in the past. Like, oh, why would anybody want to smear a victim? Because their ass is on the line and they have a lot of money and power, so they go hire Black Cube and I'm a Bad Person Incorporated.
Yeah.
And they go, and then yes, it is an actual conspiracy. They work together to make sure they smear any woman that comes out. That's why they don't come out, because somebody will go to destroy their careers and their lives if they do. Now you know the reality. And so all of these guys, whatever their political proclivity is, whether it's Weinstein or Trump, they're such bad guys who go do this to just, not only did they do the scummy things in the first place, then they go to destroy their victims.
Right, to protect themselves so they can continue victimizing other people who are not in positions of power. It's disgusting.
And now you know how power works.
Yep.
If you become a member of the Young Turks, you'll be saying,
I'm like a smart person.
So do it right now, tytnetwork.com/join. Get the whole Young Turks show every day.